The Walking Dead RPG, the zombie RPG you've been waiting for, or a cheap cash grab?
I don't know, you tell me.
Last year, AMC and Free League Publishing announced plans to develop the Walking Dead Universe RPG, a new tabletop RPG meant to bring the world of the Walking Dead to life on the tabletop. There are a few different zombie RPGs already out there. All Flesh Must Be Eaten, Dead Rain, The End of the World, Zombie Apocalypse, those are a few of the more popular ones, but there's not a really dominant zombie RPG out there, which, you know, depending on your views about the tabletop RPG industry in general, that might be a good thing. So, will The Walking Dead be able to claim the crown as the best zombie RPG out there, or is this just a way to capitalize on the current tabletop RPG craze with just another licensed game? Well, it so happens that the rulebook showed up on my front porch over the weekend, so let's find out. Now, before we get started, I will be upfront that this video is my impressions based on a read-through of the Walking Dead Universe RPG core rulebook. To be blunt, most of the folks that I usually play with have no interest in playing the Walking Dead universe because they're not really big fans of that franchise. But I didn't want to pass up on the opportunity to look at an RPG about a zombie franchise that I started reading when I was still in high school. Also, before we dig in, this is a good time for me to bring up the whole liking and subscribing thing. You know how to do that, you know how this goes. Hit those like and subscribe buttons, and now let's get started. So the good news is that the Walking Dead Universe RPG draws heavy inspiration from the series, mostly the television franchise, and it draws on some of the more common tropes to build an RPG that's heavy on quick and violent conflict, but not overly bogged down by rules. What perhaps is most impressive about this new game is that it feels specifically like a Walking Dead RPG as opposed to a generic zombie RPG, which is something that should appeal to fans of the show. But on the plus side, the game doesn't dwell too heavily into the mythos of the franchise. You won't find a lot of references to Rick or Michonne or any of the other characters out there. You don't need to know The Walking Dead to be able to jump into this game. The Walking Dead Universe RPG uses the Year Zero engine, which is a D6 dice pool system where players try to roll at least 1 6 for a success. Usually, players only need to roll a single 6 for a success, no matter how many dice they're rolling or whatever the stakes are of that skill roll. But direct conflicts with other PCs or NPCs, or in this case zombies, are resolved with opposed rolls in which the most 6s rolled wins the conflict. The game also uses a version of the stress system found in Free League's Alien RPG, which allows players to add stress dice, which are differently colored d6s, to their skill rolls, but with higher stakes. Now, players typically add stress when they want to push a failed roll, and that means basically they re-roll it, but there are other scenarios in which players have to take additional stress, usually because walkers are coming or they've been attacked by a walker, things like that. While stress adds dice to a skill check, which means more chances for a success, it also adds the potential to mess up. And yes, that's what the actual mechanic is called, messing up, by rolling a 1 on the stress dice. Now, if you roll a 1 on the stress dice, even if you succeed on the skill roll, you increase the threat level of the game, and that means that the surrounding zombies are going to be more interested in what you're doing, and you might trigger a walker attack.
You've made some bad enemies today, Walker.
That makes me real sad.
Now, if you've played a Year Zero engine game, you probably know how character creation goes. Characters will choose from 12 archetypes, each of which have a handful of unique talents. Players then stat those characters with 4 attributes and a handful of skills, which flow through to the number of dice used to make skill checks. Character creation also comes with several built-in role-playing prompts via an issue, which is a character flaw that all characters and NPCs have, and a drive, which is a motivating factor. Now, the drive also allows players to add 2 extra rolls to a single skill roll per session. So if you want to do something and you really want to try to make sure it succeeds, you can explain how it contributes to your drive in a role-playing form, and that allows you to add these extra dice to that one single roll. Now, players also have 2 anchors, who are characters within their survivor group, one of whom has to be a player character and the other of whom needs to be an NPC, who can relieve stress when players speak to them. Now, I like that the game blends mechanical options with role-playing in a clean fashion, providing some easy prompts for players to use during sessions. Now, combat in the Walking Dead Universe RPG is short but deadly, much like how violence is depicted in the Walking Dead show and comics. When fighting against the living or the dead, players make opposed skill rolls, where each player has a close combat skill and a ranged combat skill that kind of provides a baseline for most of the human versus human conflict. And the character with the most successes wins that round of combat and deals damage to their opponent. Now, each human character only has a small pool of 3 health, which reflects the general lethality found in The Walking Dead. And when a player's health reaches 0, they suffer a critical injury that can be either lethal or non-lethal. Although, if it is a lethal injury, players can still save their friend if they can get them to medical attention in time, which opens up more roles for conflict and some hard choices if they should just leave their friend to die or try to find a hospital out there that might have the medical equipment that they need. Battling walkers is generally a higher risk affair than facing off against the living, as a failure means rolling on a walker attack table. At best, players take stress when rolling on the walker attack table, and at worst, a player will suffer a sudden and horrible death with no chances for recovery. There's also a subsystem for facing off against swarms of walkers, with players collectively rolling to see if they can hold off or reduce the zombie swarm. Of course, players can also opt for a non-violent solution to a walker threat, which in this case means fleeing or hiding. But a failure will still result in a roll on the deadly walker attack table. Another thing that I actually really like about the walker system is that players can choose to sacrifice someone else, either a PC or an NPC, to try to escape the swarm. If a player wins an opposed roll while trying to sacrifice someone, they escape combat, they're out, they're gone, and they force the loser to roll on the walker attack table. If the player's attempt to escape and sacrifice someone fails, they have to roll on the walker attack table. Some other key systems in the Walking Dead Universe RPG includes discovering and building a haven from walkers and making supply runs to collect more supplies. The exploration system here is a bit simple, but the game at least rewards players for exploring their surroundings and stumbling on potentially more complications to deal with. And there's also an understandable focus on rival factions in this game. Each are built around a group drive and have their own issues. Talking about the game term, not that they have issues, although, in this case, the issues are the issues. There's almost an assumption that things will break down between a faction and the player group of survivors, although the game doesn't really have any specific mechanics or system to determine how a particular group may feel about the players at a given moment. Instead, it's just assumed that role-playing and the Game Master can create enough conflict or intrigue to build towards a full-fledged endgame. The big key to the Walking Dead universe is that it's supposed to be a deadly game. Players don't have a lot of health, there's not a lot of room for mistakes. There's also an assumption of conflict between player characters, which again can very easily result in death or worse. Although the core rulebook does have a small section about game safety, I do think it's important for all players to be on the same page before they play this game, especially if they want to play as a more damaged character or someone like a Meryl or a Negan in this game. The Game Master also really needs to quickly step in should things get out of hand, because you could just result in a TPK in which everyone kills each other off and the zombies aren't even involved. Now, generally speaking, if you want a zombie survival game that's heavy on interpersonal drama, exploration, and very quick and sudden deaths, the Walking Dead Universe RPG is a great system for you. While it's limited in that it can really only facilitate a specific kind of zombie story, the one where people are as much of a threat as walkers, and where community is both protection and also a source of drama and conflict, this game does a really good job of it. If you want to play a Walking Dead style zombie game, this RPG is the one for you. Now, the Walking Dead Universe RPG is available now. It comes with the core rulebook and a starter set designed to help players ease into the game. And, you know, we will note that we got a review copy from Free League, so thank you for that. Anyways, that's our thoughts on the Walking Dead RPG. Let us know if you're going to try out the game in the comment section, and again, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.